cannot afford to miss a single moment of the next hour. Get ready to have your ideas about sexuality, love, and relationships blown wide open. It's time to get educated, entertained, and enlightened, as well as sexually empowered. You have now tuned into the Tantra Love, Sex, and Intimacy Show. Now, here's your host, Tanya Diamond.
Hello, everybody. What a grand day it is today. I am I'm incredibly excited, and as of course you always know, that's pretty well how I live my life. And I wanted to start out today a little bit differently because I received a question, and that was, how do you live a fearless life? What does a fearless life actually look like to live? And it really has to do with being bold and not hesitating when your mind starts to think about things like what ifs. Fearlessness is a state of being in trust of oneself. So I do want you to think about that today. And we have a very fearless guest on our show today. And we're going to talk about a subject that, of course, is on most people's minds, but apparently men's even more than women's. And that is, we're going to be talking about the G-spot. And my guest today has written a beautiful little book that actually fit inside my purse. So it's quite handy, and it doesn't take a long time to read, and it's written on a great perspective from an artist. And Michael, say hi and introduce yourself, would you please?
Well, hello, and thank you so much, Tanya, for having me on. I am Michael Schuessler. I've written the book, The Holy G-Rail, The Holy G-Rail, and it is G-spot relating anatomy into lovemaking. It is a small pocket guide, really simply written, no medical terms, to make it really easy for gentlemen to find that elusive little area.
In fact, you wrote that it's a 15-minute quick guide.
Correct.
And I like that you were actually talking about texture. You've actually written it very elegantly, simply but elegantly.
Well,
and you do have a website. And why don't we tell everybody what your website is?
Yeah, that would be the holyg-rail.com.
And it starts with the. So www.theholyg-rail.com.
Yeah, or you can get there through the Holy G-Rail.
Okay, so either one. Excellent.
Either one. And then it's also available at Amazon.com. If you just type in GSPOT, you don't even have to go to the books. It'll come up number one.
Excellent. Number one. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Well, number one in G-spot stuff. Thank you.
Yes, that's the word. That's where to go. Okay, so tell me a little bit about the background of your book and why it is that we have you writing this and how you came to write this.
I wrote this because my special lover and I call her my special lover for all of you out there, just to keep her anonymity. And we were both in long-term previous relationships, and she was in one that her partner would release himself and then expect her to just go ahead and take care of herself afterwards. So she got quite regimented in taking care of herself through the clitoris. And when I came into the relationship, it was very tough for me to scale that mountain as far as that goes. She was set in her own mind. She very good at doing it herself at that time. But even if I touched her legs or distracted her in any way, it would not happen.
Well, and I will jump in here as you're telling your story, that is very, very common with women. Women learn to masturbate in a way that is very specific usually. And so if their leg's in a position that's not quite right, or like you said, you distract them by touching their leg or anything like that, it can really derail it. And
it can totally. What could take 5 minutes could take 45 minutes.
Right, exactly. Once they lose that. And, part of that is because they're actually not orgasming, they're having sexual tension release.
Oh, wow.
And so sexual tension release is where you have to have all your, you focus your entire energy onto that one spot that you're trying to get so much tension in. And frequently there's breath holding that's with that. And that tension finally has to release. But if you distract it by hitting something else, you take the focus and release away. So it has to build back up again. So sorry, a little segue there. Go right ahead.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I'm learning something too.
Right. So she was very much locked into what a lot of women are, which is a very specific way to have a sexual tension release orgasm.
So we talked about it a lot, and my book touches base on communication and self-love and warm-ups. But we talked about it a lot. I studied and I watched how she touched herself. And, slowly but surely I was able to touch her leg while she was doing it. And then we moved on to penetration, and then we moved on to toys. And now, one day, 4 or 5 years later, we were in the Caribbean and everything was relaxed, and I was able to do it myself.
So you were able to give her an orgasm?
Yeah. Okay. With my hands and my tongue. And, that was very monumental. And the book was written because we were watching videos and we were just expanding our play, so to speak, our sexual play. And I inadvertently released her through the G-spot twice in a row within 15 minutes, and she'd never, ever experienced anything like that in her life. And I wasn't even trying.
Right. So this was where a circumstance where you're saying, you preface that with everybody was relaxed, there was no expectation, you came in from a position as far as even mentally that was not in an expectation of having an orgasm. Exactly.
And when it happened, it was so powerful and so different than her clitoral orgasms that, the next morning I was in the shower practicing some self-love and just touching and feeling myself, and I found an area on my member that has the same texture and feel. Mm-hmm. And when in the book, there's a couple diagrams. If you flip your hand and move it across the shaft at the bottom, slick, and while you're erect, it has the same texture and feel. And if you push too hard, it disappears. And if you lighten up, it's still there. And I realized that was what I felt the previous night. So I ran out of the shower.
Wait.
And tried it, and it worked.
Okay.
And at that point in time, it's like I've seen so many videos and I've read a lot of books, and it's always an area. There's always an X that marks the spot, and it's in here, up there, about here. And they never give you a focal point. And we gentlemen need a focal point. So, number one, our attention span stays on it. And number two, there's a lot of different areas. If you're focusing on your lady more so than yourself, number two, your stamina, your body takes care of itself. Your partner sees that and feels the energy that you're spending the time and trying to release her and pay attention to her rather than yourself. So it really increases your intimate relations.
Well, it's true especially if you're not distracted by trying to build a deck while you're having sex because you're trying to disconnect. But
exactly.
I want to back up a little bit and explain why, in case people wonder, why does it feel different? Why does the clitoral orgasm versus the vaginal or G-spot orgasm or whatever we want to call it these days feels different? And it's because of what I talked about earlier, that most women are having sexual tension release via the clitoris, and what she experienced was an actual orgasm through non-tension.
Exactly.
And non-tension orgasms are always blow away. They will always blow your mind and leave you just like, wow, what was that? And most of us are only having sexual tension release orgasms, even men.
Wow.
When I teach men to have orgasm without ejaculation and they don't have any sexual tension related to the orgasm, the full body orgasms just blow their mind. It's just like women's.
Yeah, I've done that a few times.
Excellent. How fun is that?
It takes a lot of energy, but it's powerful.
So that's part of it. And I like the fact, texture. I mean, I get asked a lot. I mean, I remember a class, a 7-year-old woman saying to me, honey, do I have a G-spot? And will we make sure we find it before I leave class? And I'm like, all right, yes. Yes. Yeah. Everybody has one. All women have an area. And Betty Dobson is this amazing woman. She's like the mother of masturbation, teaching women to be okay with masturbation. And she's actually written a lot about the G-spot. She actually says she's never experienced a G-spot orgasm or ejaculated, and doesn't seem to feel the need that she needs to, which is awesome too. So I don't want any women or men to come away from the show thinking they have to do this.
No.
We don't want to make this another goal.
It's just a different way to release, and if you take the steps towards, that's the whole key. I mean, the book, if you read the G-spot chapter, it's a 5-minute read there.
Right.
But it's all the other chapters that help you break down the walls to be able to do that more simply.
That's what I got mainly. I mean, the reason I have you on the show today isn't just because you are a man talking about the G-spot, because it's always men that are talking about it. But what I liked about your book was that it really wasn't just how to get somebody off. It had a lot more of really the communication and the connection, and the fact that you and your partner, your special lover, were able to communicate over a long period of time about this subject.
Exactly.
And instead of just letting it kind of everybody feeling bad and kind of going their separate ways. I know that men gather their self-esteem from getting their partners off, which is their sexual self-esteem, which is a little bit sad, and it's a lot of pressure for women.
Well, it's sad, and a lot of times it's kind of a blind faith thing, because there are a lot of women out there that just to please their man will, fake it.
Yeah, something like 67%.
So I mean, it's a false sense of security when you get your lady off. Now, I know for a fact, I mean, my special lover and I have a relationship. I know when she gets off, and I know which orgasm it is, and I know when it's a combination.
Right.
Because one, she'll be very vocal,
mm-hmm.
very vocal through the clitoris, and through the G-spot, she can't scream.
Yeah, it does definitely different orgasms do different things. I definitely have experienced that, how there's deeper and higher sounds even within each, depending on where they're kind of coming from the body. And if, as a woman, you let go and surrender instead of trying to sound a certain way or not sound a certain way or not be a certain way. But really it's about the art of surrender, which is why you kind of snuck that up on her.
Yeah.
And so she didn't have any resistance thinking about what was going to happen. So here's another thing that I love is that you talk about the texture. And I know from experience of working with hundreds and thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but thousands of women, and doing the reading I've done and talking to all the people I've talked to, that the G-spot, of course, is there. Everybody has one, but it can be everywhere from right at the opening, right up, along the bone, to 2 inches back.
Exactly.
And that's a lot of area.
I say that a lot of times. It can be a very large space, and it's not cavernous, but if you miss it by a quarter of an inch, it's going to feel really good, but you can stroke till the cows come home and nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, there's a definite space to it. And I tell men and women that it feels a little bit like the roof of your mouth, mm-hmm. the hard palate. It has a little bit of a bumpy space. Now, that said, there are women whose G-spots are very, very elusive. They've had scarring. Tampons, actually, I believe if you've used enough tampons, sometimes if you're taking them out dry, that can cause micro tears all across that area.
Oh, wow.
And those micro tears can lead up to some scarring, which then makes the whole area feel differently. And mm-hmm. I have to say, there are hundreds of thousands of women that are numb inside.
Yeah.
And so even though you might, as a man, be on the correct spot, if the woman has had a lot of sexual trauma, and that doesn't just mean rape or abuse, but sexual trauma, mental even, they can actually be numb there, or it can be too painful to touch.
Exactly, and even if you're able to find the G-spot, if you're not careful, you can bruise the area.
Right.
We've figured that out because, we've had days the next day where she's pretty sore in there, and I've just used too much pressure. And that's why with the book, that area on the male's genitalia that I have as, it's called the magic spot,
mm-hmm.
Has the same texture and feel. And if the guys out there, apply some self-love and, mess with it, if they push too hard, it makes that sore also.
Right.
And if they lighten up, so you can kind of practice on yourself, and it can be the approximate distance from the urethra, I've found, and that's, through tests and trials and checking with other people too. Before I published the book, I made sure it was sound.
You said, "Okay, guys, now here's what you're going to do."
Well, that
and
control groups, and in a manner of speaking, it's amazing, and we gentlemen definitely need a focal point to ease our sexual tension, so to speak.
Right. Well, and the big some of the secrets are, of course, if you have major calloused hands, you might want to contemplate wearing a glove. And though that doesn't sound very sexy, certainly the skin, we forget how delicate vaginal yoni is the Sanskrit word for vagina. How absolutely delicate the yoni is, and how dragging on the skin is just not a good thing, inside or out.
And it's got to be lubricated. You've got to be, use some lubrications if the natural lubrication isn't happening.
I even say, even if the natural lubrication is happening, it's always nice to add a little lube. Because,
it is.
Yeah, especially if it's a natural lube and not a really nasty stuff.
Yeah, it is, and when you look at your member and you're trying to simulate it, you've got to be erect and you've got to be slick, and whether it's lube or however you want to get it slick, just water doesn't necessarily do it because the friction is still there.
Right. Now, in a lot of videos, and I know on your journey, because you spent lots of time, reading and watching things, trying to figure this out, most of the videos that are out there about the G-spot and stimulating the G-spot are actually quite brutal. I don't know if you noticed that or not.
Well, there are. There's a couple we came across, and again, we weren't really looking for the G-spot. We were just expanding our sexual play. And it's funny seeing them open up a girl and point. It's right there. It's like, huh? It just doesn't make any sense.
Right. Right there where, there's a lot of area. There can be, from your fingers'
2
point of view.
2 inches is a lot of area.
Yeah, exactly. From your fingers' point of view, that's a lot of area. But what I mean by brutal, in the sense that I've seen there's a video out that all the men in the seduction community watch to hone their skills, and it's a man that is literally jackhammering this woman with his hand.
Ouch.
And she absolutely looks, she obviously is drugged out, because when they sit her up to talk to her, she's not even coherent, and it's not because of pleasure. You can tell that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just pounding away, and I've seen so many of these where the thought is you just need more and more pressure. If they're not feeling it, use more pressure.
No.
Right, and so talk to me about that.
I believe that's inaccurate, because here's where communication comes in. When you're talking to your lover and you're stroking on that area, when she feels a certain way, like the urge to urinate, you're on it. If it hurts her, she needs to tell you, and you need to have that open communication. You can't grin and bear it and just rough it out through it, hoping it's going to happen, because if, just like when we penetrate our special lovers and they're maybe not as moist as they have been, mm-hmm. and we're not using any lubrication, I don't care who you are, it stretches the skin on your member and on your lingam, and it hurts.
Yeah.
And the next day it's really going to hurt, and I don't care if size doesn't matter. It hurts,
right.
And you need to be able to talk to each other about it. And let's say it happens one night, if you try, she can be really excited to have you do it again, but if it's sore the next, it's not, it may not be a good time. Let it lay.
Right. You let it lay. I like that. Let the sleeping member lay.
That's it.
Well, that's the big thing that I keep hearing from you here is, of course, this communication. And communication, people are just so weird about this. I just wrote an article it's called "Why Communication Can Cause Divorce," and that's communication without connection. When people are talking at each other and they haven't had any connection prior, men run screaming and women try to grab them harder. So the connection you're having, the communication you're having, is already connected, because you're probably in the bedroom, I'm imagining, and you're talking, she might say, that's a little sore, or, oh, that one feels good there.
Exactly.
People are very afraid to actually have any kind of sound come out of their mouth around this because they think it somehow dispels the fantasy of romance or sexiness or something.
Well, and I think that's just totally silly. I find, well, even myself, when I go through different moods, sometimes I may be a little quieter than normal. And I find that the stimulation for her on a personal level and on a sexual level, it comes from what I'm saying to her. And if I stay quiet, she can get just as stimulated, but if I'm in my own mind somewhere else,
right.
She can be just as stimulated, but it doesn't have as much passion and power behind it. And I think verbally, you've got to talk, even if it's, if it feels good, say it.
Right.
Or let your partner know. And if it hurts, gently move away or move their hands away. You don't have to jerk and say, "Ow, that hurts."
Right.
It's in the manner you do it. It's so important because what we feel from day to day totally changes.
Well, I'm glad to hear you're saying that men are actually, men always say, well, women are so different because it's different all the time. And I'm like, well, it really is for men as well.
It is. It totally is. And depending on how long your session is, it can hurt the next day. Or, even when it comes to oral sex, if you're hitting a sharp tooth, she doesn't know.
Right. Exactly.
And they can cut. Little fine cuts, and
you've had experience with this, Michael.
Yes, I have. and you try to grin and bear it because it does feel good overall. Right. But that 10%, then the next day, when you're trying to perform some other, wonderful, intimacy, it hurts, and it's like, well, how come, it just stop when it hurts, and that's female and men, and not necessarily stop or
just
gently move and communicate.
Right,
that.
Communicate and change it up. So with the now you've done with your special lover, you have done G-spot with your hand, G-spot with your lingam, I'm sure as well,
yes.
Right?
Well, the book is actually a safe sex guide. I don't even think I talk about penetration within it. It's all besides hand penetration. Once you find it with your hand and you're able to release her that way, then you can contort your bodies to make the other parts of your body do that. We've done it many times. Now, sometimes she enjoys it with my lingam, and other times she prefers my hand.
Right.
And
there's that communication again, saying
exactly.
not just that it has to be one way all the time. That's part of especially there's like 40 million sexless couples in America, and part of this big deal is that most people are having button pushing sex, and that is, I know how to get you off, you know how to get me off. We do it the quickest way we can, and then
we do it Thursday night between 10 and 11.
Right, and we don't have a lot of time, so we'll just get it done. Everybody has their orgasm, check that box, and yet so many people I talk to, both men and women, are so completely bored with sex, and they feel embarrassed to say that. Men especially are like, is it okay that I say I'm bored with sex? Does that make me less of a man? I'm like, absolutely it does not. I mean, sex, for procreational sex, is absolutely boring if it's done the same way over and over. Hey, Michael, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a few moments to talk more about the communication, G-spots, and anything to do with sex.
And the holy G-ray.
That's right. We'll see you in a few moments.
Okay.
40 million sexless couples in the U.S.? Are you wondering why having sex leaves you feeling lonely? Are you suffering from the myths of sexual dysfunction? Do you know in your heart that there has to be more than what you're currently getting out of making love? To rid yourself of sexual ignorance, get more out of your lovemaking, and find out more about spiritual sexual connection, then you need to check out www.thetantrateacher.com to receive your free copy of the ebook called Secrets of the Tantra Teacher. Don't suffer another minute without the sexual loving and ecstatic bliss you were born to receive. Get to www.thetantrateacher.com right now. That's www.thetantrateacher.com.
Is your sex life non-existent? Do sexual dysfunctions leave you soft? Is internet porn getting more than you are? Or are you paying more attention to porn than your partner? Have you tried talk therapy and it got you nowhere? You are not alone. You can be freed from sexual shame, guilt, and dissatisfaction. A visit to the Tantra Teacher is in order. Call now and mention you heard the Tantra Teacher on the radio and get a very special offer. Stop waiting for a miracle and call right now. 206-276-2735. Phone consultations or in person will get you the information you need to be successful in your love life. But you have to call now. 206-276-2735. Stop making excuses. Call the Tantra Teacher. 206-276-2735.
Now is your chance to be part of the show. Call 877-230-3062. Call in with your questions or thoughts and talk with the host and their guest. Again, that number is 877-230-3062.
Hi, we are back talking about the G-spot with an amazing man who wrote a very handy little guide called the Holy G-Rail. And that's, if you're looking it up, it's going to be G-Rail. And Michael, say your last name for me because I really massacre people's last names.
It's Schuessler.
Schuessler. And see, that's not even a hard one, but, that's the last fear that I have left in my life is saying my guest's last name. Even if it's Smith, I'm just like, here, say your last name. So
it makes it simpler. I always do that when I sign books. How do you spell your name?
Oh, yeah.
It's Tom.
Yeah, exactly. Tom. Well, there could be a lot of ways to spell Tom.
Yeah, T-O-M-M.
Yeah, exactly. So I was thinking about the fact that as women, it used to be that we didn't really, our pleasure wasn't that important, except in, of course, the art of Tantra, which is around for over 6,000 years. So, but in America especially, it seems like women didn't get theirs. And then all of a sudden we demanded ours. And now it's become then it was kind of a chore where men had to get women off before men could get theirs. And that became a little bit of a drudgery to a lot of people. And then we got to the point where, okay, not only were we supposed to have clitoral orgasms, but we were supposed to have G-spot orgasms. Then we're supposed to have multiple orgasms. Then we're supposed to have U-spot orgasms. Then we're supposed to have multiple combination orgasms. And then, of course, I come on the picture and mess everybody up by saying that now you can have spiritual orgasms, and which have nothing to do with even physical touch, because I can take a breath and have an orgasm. So, wow.
It takes me many, many breaths to have an orgasm without touch.
We're in a lot of pressure, though.
Yeah.
I mean, what can you say to me about this? I mean, I'm sure your partner, your special lover, does not feel like she has to perform for you, does she?
No, we talk about it, and about a year and a half ago, I had neck surgery, which created some medical problems with pain management and stuff like that. So she's very sympathetic and we're sympathetic to each other. She can tell when I'm not necessarily in the mood, and the reality of it is I enjoy cuddling, touching, and just scratching her neck with my fingernails and her back, and if she happens to feel like performing oral sex at the same time, that's okay, but I don't have to release. She doesn't have to release. We've gotten to a point to where we just enjoy and it's not gotten to a point. We've always been at the point where we can touch, caress, and enjoy each other without necessarily releasing. And then when we get really excited, then, of course, we'd like to release. But there's no pressure. I don't expect her to G-spot, and she doesn't expect me to perform that every time we do, because, I mean, it actually, and that's what I like about the book also, it actually relieves the pressure off of me, because I teach you how to do it with your hand.
Right. So men that have had
gentleman
surgery or certain things going on, or they're not just up for it for the day.
Yeah, if you're not up to it, you can still release your lady, and she'll release very powerfully, and you don't have to make your body do the work.
Right.
You know, and I think that's really important. You know, you can still please your lady if your body, you know, your lower half of the body doesn't seem to be, you know, where you need it to be, or if you're tired from working all week long, or whatever. There's different ways, and even, you know, let's forget about releases in a total. If she finds that, you know, tickling and scratching on the back and all over her skin, very erotic, and sometimes that's all she needs when she's really tired from work.
Right, and so I think I keep coming back to, with everybody that I teach, that it's really not just about the orgasm, that we're chasing these orgasms and bigger and different types of orgasms, like somehow if both of us can have orgasms, we're going to be okay. And the reality is there are plenty of women out there that I talk to that can orgasm from themselves or through intercourse. In fact, one woman, and it's pretty rare for most women, but there are only like 12% of women are able to orgasm through intercourse without any other stimulation except penile entry. And she actually hates sex. And so it's kind of funny. She orgasms every single time, whether she wants to or not. It's just the way she's built and he's built, and she can't stand sex. And so, well, yeah, and so, you know, it's because the orgasm isn't it. You know, orgasm.
It's no longer special to her because it happens all the time.
Maybe so. You know, maybe if it didn't happen every time, she'd be more thankful. But I think what it is that she's just not, they're not connected intimately. Yes, she can physically, and I've talked to other women that are physically easily orgasmic, but they talk about how lonely they feel and how almost resentful they feel about their bodies being so easily orgasmic because the sex is quicker and the man has fulfilled his quote unquote, you know, performance, duty, and then he gets his and then it's over. And so that's kind of sad for them.
Well, I think, people in general that feel that way need to, or not need to, should apply some more loving self-love, and not in the masturbation field, but, drawing a bath and just touching and feeling their body and loving the parts without the orgasm.
Well, that's what I love when you actually say it's self-love instead of masturbation. Masturbation to me is a technique for getting sexual tension release gone. Yeah. You have a bunch of tension stored up in your genitals and you want it gone, you masturbate. When you want to actually self-love, self-pleasure, when you want to experience expanding your capacity for pleasure, is when you use self-loving techniques. And that's what you're talking about. And I teach the ability to expand pleasure. Most people are living in a 2 of scale to infinity of pleasure. It's like this is as much pleasure as I've had. The biggest orgasm I have is my 10. And when in reality, it's like a 2 compared to what you could have. And you've probably experienced this because you guys have had a more rounded out way of making love. You may have noticed that your ability to have pleasure is expanded.
Exactly. And it's a wonderful thing to take a bath with my partner and just love her body for what it is without the release.
Right.
And it's a wonderful thing for myself when I'm a shower kind of guy, when I, light a couple candles with myself and just, enjoy a bath, put some music on, and just, feel my legs and love my neck and the areas that I'm not too happy with, just pour love into them. And it makes me feel so much better afterwards with no release.
Well, and this is why you were able to write this kind of book as well, that it talks more about the communication and the ability to connect with your partner. I like to talk about making love to the soul. And when two people are so connected into each other that really the orgasm becomes the, something that if it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. Nobody's resentful about not having an orgasm.
Well, and that's the key. If you build up resentments, and it's funny, I'm a release kind of guy. And
explain to me what am. What is that? You're a release kind of guy. Explain to me what you mean when you say.
I mean, I like the orgasm now.
And we're talking about ejaculation and orgasm together, or just orgasm without ejaculation?
I like ejaculation now. And in a prior relationship I had, she wanted to grow farther together and leave the physical alone. I have a certain need for the physical release. Okay, now my spiritual release comes in other ways, and I can have that with my partner now all the time. As I'm saying, we can make love without the physical release.
Okay,
but I still, for me, enjoy that physical release.
Okay, and you have separated orgasm and ejaculation before, so you do know what I'm talking about with that.
Yes.
Okay. And so consciously you choose ejaculation with orgasm.
Well, I would say it's a 50-50.
Okay.
And that's just where I am, and
sure.
I need that physical. I don't need that physical.
I was going to say, you've been talking about how you need it now. Come on, Michael. I'm just a release kind of guy. Listen to me, Tanya. Don't try to convince me otherwise. I just am that way.
Well, no, I've had relationships where that's not very important, and I've found that it's not necessarily resentments on my part, but there's resentments on both parts. As you were saying earlier, that, when there's one person releasing and the other one isn't, or when you don't have the ability, I really enjoy getting my partner off. Okay, and I really enjoy when she's feeling really good. Huh?
Most men do.
I mean, that's it more so than myself. And I mean, when I release afterwards, that's fine. And from a very young age, I've found that I can hold off my release for a long time, or I can release multiple times without worrying about it. Now, as I get older in age, I'm finding releasing multiple times burns me out.
Yes,
so why not just hold off for a few hours and then release one?
There you go.
I mean, but I can go either route. And anymore, it's like, well, the other way, my cardio gets built up so hard that, releasing 2-3 times in a row, and my heart's pounding in my chest.
Is that how you got the neck injury, Michael?
It becomes difficult, So now I'm more patient, and the same with my lover. And again, we don't have to release. We can. An evening at home consists of watching movies, me rubbing her back, and a little oral sex going on. She's fallen asleep with it in her mouth. And I don't care.
That's great. You know what? I'm really happy you said that, because I remember being younger, and that's got to be the biggest faux pas when you're young, right? Because everybody's completely insulted, or the person that you fell asleep on anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows that it doesn't. The actual physical release doesn't matter. It all feels good,
right?
And it doesn't really matter. I'm not insulted, because I know if I wanted it, all I'd have to do is wake her up.
Hey, down there, wake up!
Yeah, wake up, hon. I really want to go.
I was never forgiven. There's a man that I had been celibate for quite a while, and finally decided that I was going to break my celibacy, and he was quite excited to be the recipient of me breaking my celibacy. And we got in bed, and I guess all I can think of at this point is that I really he wasn't the right one, or I really wasn't ready to do that, because we're making out and I fall asleep. Now, anybody that knows me, I'm one of those people that can get 2 hours of sleep for years and am just ripping to go morning and night. Doesn't matter. I am on fire. So for me to fall asleep while making out
during
with somebody
making out, that one's a tough one.
I know. And so we were making out, and I fell asleep. And I remember the next morning waking up and thinking, did we have sex? Wow, it wasn't really memorable if we did. That's not so good. And I look over at him, and he's got his arms folded across his chest, and he's scowling at me. I'm like, wow, was it that bad? And he goes, you fell asleep. And I'm like, really? During sex? And he goes, no, we didn't even get to that part. And I'm like, I fell asleep? And he said, yes. And he was so mad at me. He has never forgiven me since. And I thought, how sad is that? Maybe I was just tired. But
well, and it's definitely a blow to the old ego. I mean, we men, it's funny when certain words are spoken to us, whether it's reality or just out of anger, it really affects us. And
yes.
I mean, you ladies, if the women out there that are more physical, if a man's body doesn't necessarily work the way he wants it to, we'll take it personally.
Well, women feel like their society tells us that our attractiveness is tied up in your erection.
Exactly.
And if you're not erect, we must not be attractive. And, the porn is a big reason for that. Because women presume that, of course, you're looking at porn, you're looking at women that you're attracted to while you have an erection and get off, and therefore, if you can't do that with us, then there's something wrong with us.
It's funny because, there's a lot of guys out there that just watch girl-on-girl porn. They don't want guys in it whatsoever and stuff. And it's funny, when I see a guy in a porno, I just relate to myself.
Right.
So because we're visual beings,
right.
When I see him erect, it makes me erect only because I can relate
right.
to what he's feeling.
Well, good. Now you've answered my question about why heterosexual men would watch porn with other men in it.
Yeah, it's only the relation factor of seeing it, and I think that's why women, my special lover enjoys watching women, because she can relate to her own body and what she's feeling when she has it.
Well, it is funny because, I've always said, wow, here's these really, the hardcore, you're not so hardcore, but there's these hardcore heterosexual, never gonna, man. And there they are watching porn, and I'm laughing. Here you are looking at a guy that's so much bigger than you're probably ever going to be. And in today's porn, probably so much buffer than you're ever going to be, doing something that you're probably never going to be able to do with somebody you're never going to be able to do it to.
Yeah, exactly.
This sounds really ludicrous to me. Amateur porn, at least, maybe there's some more reality to it, but that just cracks me up.
It makes total sense, and it's funny because I sat there and I questioned myself for a long time, and it's like, well, it's not. I didn't question myself, but it's not that
Michael,
I'm attracted to the men. It's I can relate to what their bodies feel,
right?
And so my body, without thinking about it, because we are visual beings,
right?
It instantly goes because I know what he's feeling. So my body will subconsciously do exactly the same.
I've got Cameron, my producer over here, who's shaking his head, so I'm going to have to ask him why he's shaking his head. Hang on. He's got to turn himself on. Wait, whoa, turn himself on. No,
this is Cameron?
Yes,
this is Cameron, the producer.
Yes, it is.
Hi, Cameron.
Hi there. I have to say that, when it comes to porn, I can't really watch, the porn that you see, like what you're talking about, because it doesn't make sense to me. I'm already subconsciously down on myself on certain areas of my body anyways, and my performance in bed, that whole thing. And Devindia's, she's all for it. She thinks I'm great, which is fantastic. But why would I watch a porn when I can have my own porn in my own home to begin with?
Oh, well,
we enjoy watching a show called Real Sex a lot.
Yes.
And for me, I can't get an erection watching someone else. That it doesn't do it. Doesn't do it for me. If I'm with Devindia, that's a different story. I can get on that, and I'm on board. But we watch Real Sex together, and immediately I'm there with her. But it's because she's here with me. There's
Yeah, so you're not the solo porn kind of guy.
It's a communal thing.
I can watch it. If I'm by myself, I can sit there and watch it. But I'm watching. What am I watching?
Right.
You know, it's like, okay, whatever. You know, I you know, I'm sorry.
It sounds like you need to practice a little bit of self-love if you're worried about it.
It's not about worrying about it. It's about why.
It doesn't make any sense to him. Yeah.
Why would I watch it when I have what I have at home?
Right.
Well, that's true. And
you know?
And see, we don't live together, so I don't have it at home.
Oh, okay.
Well, see, there it is.
Yeah. So that
you
could
but
be.
you could take videos of her, right?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
oh yes, and we do. We do that, and we call and we have phone sex, and I mean we do all of that stuff.
I know it doesn't make it doesn't. It's just it was. I didn't mean to. Of course not. And I didn't mean to get you guys all riled up about this because it's one of those hysterical funny things to me because men, until I point it out, a lot of men don't even think about it.
Yeah.
You know, when I tell them, oh look, you're looking at some man that's like this, and they're going, oh. Yeah, no.
And a lot of macho guys think that's the more homophobic, shall I say?
Yes.
Think that if I get aroused, and they're not thinking about the fact that, even when it comes to a simple thing like saying no to your children.
I think it's more detrimental to themselves than anything else because if they're looking at these things and they're seeing guys that are much larger than they are or performing a little differently than they are, I mean, they don't even know what goes on behind the scenes as to make this porn movie. They don't realize that
they don't know how many hours
20 takes to get six penetration.
Most of those guys aren't even fully aroused.
And half of those guys are gay anyways.
Exactly.
Oh, come on. You guys are going to destroy. Now, look, you're destroying point for
but
all
as I was
listeners.
saying, and the only reason I brought up children to get off that subject, it's about being able to do something. If you're unable to say no to someone that wrongs you, the best thing for you to do is to go into the mirror and say no to yourself. So you visually see yourself saying no. That makes you a lot more able to say no to other people because you can see yourself saying no to other people when they're wronging you.
Well, that's an interesting thing, going to the mirror. So what you're saying is, okay, you're a person that has a problem saying no to your kids, no to your coworkers, whatever, no to your lover. And what you're suggesting is that we go to the mirror.
Every time you go to the bathroom and say no to yourself.
Okay.
And that way you visually see yourself saying no. And that way, when you want to say no to someone, instantly, subconsciously, you're able to say no because you've seen yourself saying no.
Ah, okay.
And that's and that relates to the porn as far as I go. I relate. Now I don't care what size the guy is or whatever. I just relate to the fact that he's standing up. So instantly, subconsciously, I stand up.
Right.
It's not because I'm it's that subconscious image of an erect member or yoni.
Yep.
Lingam.
Yep.
Excuse me. And it's the same with saying no to yourself in the mirror. If you have a problem doing something, you've got to be. It's even like practicing self-love on the different levels. How can you expect someone else to get you off, whether it's spiritually, mentally, or physically, if you can't do it to yourself?
No, and I do teach that. And the big thing is you have to be your own best lover.
Yes.
Really, you need to be your own best lover. And when I hear men talk about, and you've said this today too, it's more important for your partner to be pleased than for yourself. I need to say this for women, and I need men to hear me say this. So if you're a man listening to me, I need you to hear me say this. The most exquisite lover on the planet for me has been men that are actually not that focused on completely pleasing me, but being completely pleased by me. Now, that isn't me doing them, all right? Mm-hmm. That is that their enjoyment of what they're doing with me is so intense that I ride that feeling, which is a totally different feeling than them being so concentrated on doing something to me to please me.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I know, and it's one of those things where, and of course, we all start in different places, and in our 20s, I believe sex for women in their 20s is really dismal for most women. I always tell men in their 20s to date women in their 40s, and because the women in their 20s are so concerned about so many things, that they're not really having really great sex. They think they are, and later on in life they come and say, I don't think that was really great sex. They're just really pleased that anybody's actually doing anything to them at that point. In their 30s, you start to change a little bit and start to actually consider what's happening. But I think that for women, like there was a man that touches me, and when he touches me, it feels like he's touching heaven. And when I ask him, he feels that way. So in other words, he is experiencing touching heaven when he's touching me, and therefore I can feel that from him.
Exactly.
And so
you've got that EMF going on.
Right, that whole point. So if you're, as a man, if you're making love to a woman and you're doing a 10-step to the G spot, like I touch here and I touch there, because men usually use a map to women's pleasure. What I want to invite you to do next time is actually feel, and you've talked about this in your book, Michael, where you're talking about feeling yourself, and the pleasure that you feel on your fingers.
Yeah, feeling the touch and sensation rather than feeling through. Yeah.
Because the G spot, now there's the physical G spot, which is basically spongy material around the urethra. And then in Tantra, there's the energetic, the sacred spot where women hold all their emotions and their emotional components. And that's why this spot is so incredibly elusive, because there's a physical spot that, yes, on a lot of women feels good. But if the emotional spot or the energetic spot that lingers there, which is that's the part that's super elusive to find, that's what can feel numb. That's what can create anger. That's what holds all these emotions. And when we contact it, if it's not understood what's going on, that I think is where all this confusion about not having a G spot or having a G spot, or why did I orgasm then, or why did I ejaculate then but not then. So I think we're dealing with two components there. We're dealing with the physical material, the physical aspect, and of course the clitoris runs all the way down there as well, the legs of the clitoris.
Oh, yeah.
So, but we're also dealing with an energetic spot. And when I teach sexual healing and teach the art of sexual healing to partners, that's what we're really dealing with, is that energetic, finding that energetic spot. And it has more to do with letting go than trying to use the map. And so that's why I was so curious about your book, because in a way, even if you weren't saying what I'm saying, you were.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
If you read in between the lines,
right,
all that information is there. And
exactly.
In the future, this is actually the 5th book of a volume of 6.
Okay.
The first one's going to be a volume of communication.
Excellent.
The Holy G-Rail 1, communication. The Holy G-Rail 2, the road through self-love. The Holy G-Rail 3, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
The Holy G-Rail is the 5th volume, and then the 6th is going to be Changing the World One Orgasm at a Time. All roads lead to the Holy Grail.
Right.
In other words, it takes all these different aspects to make any sexual union, whether it's physically releasing or spiritually releasing, actually work.
Yes.
If you read in between the lines, all the information is there, but the problem is if I wrote it all, no one would read it.
Right, exactly. And I like the way you're breaking it up simply because, really we get a little daunted, especially men, about these huge volumes about what they don't know. I mean, I've got the biggest library on sex probably on the planet, and I certainly have partners that have looked at that and thought, oh my God.
Yeah.
If you left this on the coffee table, so ladies. If you get this book, The Holy G-Rail, and you were to leave this on the coffee table, I've got to tell you, I can measure it with my hand. So it's like, oh, look at that. It's the average penis length. It's about 6 inches.
Yep. 7 1/4.
Yeah, 7 1/4.
Yeah.
My hand has grown. It's relatively small and not very daunting. And so I do think it's a good read. I do think it's something that's quite valuable, and we'll look forward to seeing the rest of what you have on there as well.
Well, thank you.
And I want to say that, yes, I did read between the lines, and that's why I didn't find you just another man that's written about the G-spot, but somebody that actually had something more going on there, that understood the energetic components of all of this as well.
It's so very important. It's everything that leads up to it. And I've had some people slam my book and saying that it's all been said. And the reality of it is a lot of the information has been said.
There's no original thought anymore anyway.
There isn't, But the reality also is, if you make it simple enough and you gently nudge the reader into remembering what they already know.
We're going to have to get here quick. He's kicking me off. Say your name. Say the website.
Okay,
do it fast.
It's theholyg-rail.com or amazon.com. GSPOT, the Holy G-Rail. I am Michael Schuessler, and thank you so much.
I'm so excited to have had you. Thank you. And Cameron's going to say bye-bye to me.
Thank you, Cameron, too. Take care.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Tantra Love Sex
Are you still there, Michael?
Show with your host, Tanya Diamond. Don't miss next week's show at Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Until then, visit our website at www.tanyadiamond.com. That's TANJA for more information on workshops and classes.